Welcome back everyone to part 3 of my Brickadia Map devlog. Today we'll be making an additional art pass on the map. So you can see here I started making some barrels of toxic elements, and I also added a delivery truck. This is all to fit with the warehouse theme of the map, where the enemies are offloading illegal chemicals, which is why the players are raiding the warehouse. Next, we created a skyline outside the map, as well as a parking lot for just some visual elements to add. Next, we started on some gameplay elements, such as adding basic ammo spawns for the player to play around. Then we added a bot, which is going to play an NPC role, and he'll be critical in some storytelling as well as helping ease the starting map difficulty. Here's a final view of this section's art pass. We added an entry point for stage 2 in the map, which is going to be a door the players blast open. Then we started to add a black market for the player to shop at. This is going to serve as a hub for players to buy weapons and upgrades, and they'll also be able to increase their defenses. A core part of this map is going to be bots playing the role of towers, which the black market NPC is going to basically sell crews the player can buy. Here we went with a different theme for the buyables in the map. I opted more for covered crates to give it more of a gritty vibe, and I want to do another pass of the spawn room embracing this vibe. This will basically allow the map to have the feeling of players being in a back alley and truly in a big city, which is what I'm aiming for here. Finally, we added some teleporters for the player. As I said, these I want to touch up. I don't like this futuristic aesthetic, and I'd rather go for a gritty, current era aesthetic for this map. We finished with some wiring touch-ups, which will basically bug fix some of the issues you ran into. Here I added an additional teleporter so bots would stop getting stuck on that corner. Then we added some different math to the minimum bots that spawn, allowing us to properly divide by waves and round using the modulo gate. Here we fixed some round ending logic, which will basically pulse the round end twice, which will delete bots even if they spawned after the first round end pulse. And then we decrease the spawn pulse between bots to a tick. And finally, we added some math gates for the prestige system, which will basically multiply each prestige level by a specific multiplier and then add a floor. So bots, for example, will start at 50% health, and then each round they add 0.04% of their max HP, which will allow them to scale as the game goes on. Then we copy pasted this to every single bot in the array. Now we're going to work on developing the shop for the player to buy upgrades at and increase their NPC teams. We started with adding some counters to the map, which will help the player track what's going on. So this is a wave counter, which will help the players understand how many waves they've completed. And here we added a health counter, which is going to help keep track of how many bots have successfully completed the objective and how much health the player has remaining until they lose the map. And finally, we added a currency counter, which will help the player keep track of how much currency they've earned and how much they have to spend on different towers within the map. And here we started development on an objective table, which will play a role in basically being a tactical placement of the teams that the player can buy from the black market. Now we're going to work on developing the currency counter, which will allow us to use the shop. So we're going to create some math gates that interface with our round system. Following what we did before, we're going to start with a variable, which is going to act as our currency counter. We're going to add a set gate to reset this to 0. And then we're going to take an increment gate, and the value of this increment gate is going to be an add for a base value and a multiply. The multiply is going to feed from our round counter here. We'll take the round and we're going to multiply we'll start with, say, 5 coins a round, and then our base value. So we're going to add a base round value of 10. So this will effectively create a slope where we start at 15 coins for round 1, 20 for round 2, 25 for round 3, 30 for round 4, and so on and so forth. We'll feed this value into here, and then set this. And then this is going to exec every time that our wave spawner pulses. And now we should have a basic counter here for currency. We're going to take this value and we'll feed it into our currency counter that we added into the map earlier. Now we're going to create the logic for buying items and applying a cost to them. We will use an edge detector. Then we will have an AND gate here, and then this AND gate will have a requirement for the currency to be enough. So we'll come here and we'll put a variable, which is going to be the cost of the item. We will put a subtract gate here for the future expense when we buy the item. We need a greater than or equal to the cost here to be the in. Then this will be our currency in here, and this will basically require that the currency is greater than or equal to the cost, which will allow us to then activate the shop. We then will take an increment and apply it to this negative. Really quick, we're going to hotwire our in and out from the currency variable over here. We'll take the currency green, will be our in for its current value, and then the blue out will allow us to change the variable value. These will be non-visible. And then we'll come over here and then we're going to apply the logic for turning the item on. So we'll have an OR. Now this can activate the OR, and we'll also have a game state in here, as well as a timer. And then this will be an AND here. We're gonna add a game state on router here from this green here. We'll go ahead and wire this to this AND here, so the game has to be on to keep this loop on. And then we're going to have this timer, so it will create an infinite loop on 1 second, so it keeps the item on. Then we take this wire out, and this will feed into a slider servo with an item attached that will pop out of the ground when the player successfully buys something. And now that we successfully have built the logic, we will copy and paste this to every item in the shop. Last, we're going to work on building this plasma battery. I want these to replace what my previous tier system was, and this will effectively empower the fort's health, our bot's damage, and possibly in the future weapon damage. So once again, we start with copy pasting this logic circuit. And now we're going to run the health variable into this so that we can manage health. Now this is going to multiply, add and multiply by a gate to set bot damage values. And this is going to run into every bot on the map, which will allow us to upgrade the entire map with the one purchase of a plasma battery. Here we're going to create a generic out to apply to all bots, which will allow us to future-proof future upgrades in the map. Alright, now we're going to do a test run of the map with the shop implemented in all of our upgrades and ensure that they work correctly. Alright, we've got our first blade spawn here. And we can see that's working successfully. The counter above the crates is counting up, and our currency is counted up. And we can see here the police bot is also working correctly. We can also see there might be some pathing logic opportunities here, which we'll try to bug fix in the next video. We're going to go ahead and save up here to buy some of the upgrades, and we will see how they function. Okay, we're going to go ahead and buy an assault team here, and we can see that's successfully working. And then we're going to go ahead and try a gun buyable here, and we can see that I got the weapon. It does seem right now that the map difficulty is too low, so we're going to have to adjust that as well to increase the curve of the bot difficulty. I do want to improve the plasma battery to increase the number of bot spawns as well in the future. Okay, we'll go ahead and test our last buyable here, which is going to be the health pack spawns, which look like they successfully work, as well as all the gun spawns. Alright, we can see what the final state of stage 1 looks like with all the buyables activated. So it still does seem quite easy right now, even at around 40, so we will definitely fix that. And I'm going to have to fix whatever this guy is shooting at. For the next video, I do want to create stage 2 and start working on implementing how the map progresses. So we will be doing a map pass for the inside of the warehouse and completing the bug fixes we just found in this pass. So that's it for today, and look forward to the next video.